All right, welcome to episode 209 of the Long Toss here on the Walkoff. I have been a bad boy and haven't watched much baseball lately. Family in town, lots on my plate, but based on the text messages in the group chats I've been a part of, I picked a pretty good week or two to not watch every baseball game. So, Scott, how are you doing? You're hatless, you're handsome. What's going on? What's the occasion?
After needing to do that solo podcast there, Adam, on top of family being at his place and on top of everything he's dealing with, decided to get food poisoning. So I rolled solo on Friday for the first time ever where I've actually sat down and laid down. Well, I'm going to tell you, buddy, tip of the cap to you, because it is so much harder to just talk into the ether without someone to just stop you when you're running off the rails. Totally. It's nice to be able to just spew all the shit I want to spew, but it's nice to have you there to be like, whoa, hold on, some of these things are wrong, because there were so many times throughout that cast where I was like, oh yeah, right, Tyler Heineman
is totally a thing.
Forgot he was an option to come up. Yes. Anyways, glad to have you back and healthy, bud.
All right. Thank you so much. Joel, you're back from the lake. Yeah. How long ago was that? Was that recent? You gave me a look like that wasn't recent.
No, it was last weekend.
May long? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Look nice out there.
So I'm back. Yeah. Feeling good.
Nice to see you.
Aside from Blue Jays feelings, I'm feeling good, I guess. I don't
Did you end up posting that Mark Shapiro Moneyball TikTok?
I
or did you chicken out?
I still have it. I just didn't. I didn't. Well, I just didn't feel like it was. I didn't want to.
Yeah, I can't officially. Guys, right? I can't officially say I think you should. Not on air. I can't. So
I will. Sure, I'll do it because it's Moneyball, right? It's Moneyball, and it's funny. I'll do it. I'll put it up.
All right, Jen. Nice to see you, Jen. What's going on?
I will say that the good thing about this recent stretch of Blue Jays baseball, the series win this weekend notwithstanding, is that I no longer care what position Bo Bichette plays. I'm over it. I'm over it because
we've got bigger problems to deal with.
You know what? They could put out a lineup card with Bo Bichette as catcher, and I'd be like, let's see what the kid's
got. Fair enough.
As long as they leave him in that 2-hole. Yeah.
Call for desperate measures. Absolutely. All right. And then Craig from the Jaybird Watching Podcast. How you doing, buddy?
Okay, gang. How is everybody else doing this evening? We finally got a series win in our pocket after how many? I felt like that scene in Ghostbusters where they get the first call, the redhead smashes down on the phone and hits the buzzer, and we got
one. That's great. That's great. Yeah, perfect analogy. All right, well, we got a lot to get to today. Full disclosure, because I haven't watched every Blue Jays game over the past 10 days, I'm going to be a active listener for most of this podcast. So I'll direct traffic, but if I have some dumb questions, please feel free to roast me and let me know. But I need to get caught up to speed. So everybody direct your knowledge towards me. Catch me up. Okay, so we're going to talk the Jays Twins series. We're going to talk bad base running. Joel, I know you have some strong thoughts on that, running into outs and donating outs to the other team. Bo Bichette continues to dominate. That's good. Every time I do check the box score, it's, Bo Bichette went 3 for 5 today. No surprise. Injuries. We stayed healthy for most of the season. Not anymore. Jano, Kiermaier. We'll get to all that. What's going on with Vlad? I see the headline, "Is Vlad broken?" in the show notes. And my alarm bells are going off. So someone reassure me he's not literally broken here. And then we're going to talk Vegas and what's going on with the Oakland A's and stuff like that, just for fun towards the end. And then, of course, everybody else has brought their topics to share with the community. So let's get to it right away. Jays Twins series. We took 2 out of 3. We're back on track, baby. What's going on?
I mean, here's the thing is that we've got to take the positive of this was a series win. And I mean, Craig kind of said it, right? It's like, yes, we got one finally. It didn't feel great. I don't give a shit how it feels. I'm going to take it. Listen, it was two wins that they scored 6 runs in those 2 wins. And then the loss they scored 7, which is just baseball to a T. And I mean, there were some bright spots there. Varsho has been so impressive this series. He really kind of stepped it up. Bo continues to be incredible on both sides of the field. I know that there's some people here who maybe missed a game or two, and just as soon as they hear you talk about Bo Bichette defending well, gets their ire up, right? But he's been really solid in the month of May when it comes to defense and his offense. I mean, my God, the dude is leading the American League in batting average. He's leading the league in hits. He is a complete stud. He's showing power. He's getting it done in every single way of the game, and that is just so encouraging. Jose Barrios, I mean, I'm almost a believer again. Reel me in, gang, but I am almost a Jose Barrios believer again. Every single start that he has had in the last about month and a half has been dynamite. There's negatives, right? Like they didn't instill a bunch of confidence in me in this series. You know, at no point am I like, and they're back on track. Here we go. This is the team. But I mean, I guess you got to take your wins where you can get them.
Well, I mean, you touched on Barrios. The numbers look good. His ERA under 4, maybe the first time since he's been a Blue Jay.
I mean, other than that hot streak he had at the end of 2021, yeah.
So yeah, that's a positive takeaway.
You just keep coming back to Minnesota to get him right a little bit. You know, it was a nice little bit of catharsis for him, you know, this afternoon. You know, he's able to take it to his old team a little bit.
Truly.
Jen, what are your thoughts on where this team is at? I mean, we had let's just get it out. We had the team meeting, right? The no coaches only, put your ear to the door if you want to listen in, players only meeting. And then we went to Minnesota, took 2 out of 3.
I think that
what's going on?
I think that players only meeting can almost be a conversation in and of itself, just because there seemed to be a little bit of ire. The fact that the media found out about it so quickly, and it might have been Schneider who kind of dropped that ball, and there seemed to be a little bit of some of the commentary around that seemed interesting, but you know, how early is this? Early in the season for a team meeting, a players only meeting? Sorry, it's not a team meeting; it's a players only meeting. Are we really early for that?
Jen, last year they had one almost
the same
at
day,
the exact same time in May. It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah,
and they had 3 players only meetings last year before Montoyo finally got fired.
Right. You know, I'm really happy they got a series win, regardless of whatever, you know, mode in which they got those wins. You know, really positive to see Jose Barrios have another good outing. To see that ERA drop below 4, you know, that bodes really well for the rotation. Seeing Bassett struggle is, you know, he's had sort of his highs and lows already this season. Who knows how the rest of the season will play out? So that can be a bit concerning. Gausman was Gausman. You kind of expected them to win that game, or I like to think that every time he's on the mound, the team has a really good chance of winning. You know, even though he's had some of his own mishaps here. But they still have a lot of work to do. And we still saw a lot of mistakes get made this weekend, right? That terrible base running, mistakes that just really shouldn't be made, right? George Springer today, early in the game, what are we doing? These are veteran players. These are not, you know, rookie call-ups on a team that is tanking and making these mistakes, kind of learning on the job. These are some, you know, veterans that we're seeing making these boneheaded mistakes. And I understand that when things aren't going well, you might try to push or press a little bit more, but also as a veteran, you know that that's not the route to take. So I don't know what they're doing sometimes, right? So, great that they got the series win. I honestly didn't think that they would. But we're not out of the woods in terms of seeing some of what is going on with this team. Vlad is a concern. And we're going to, I'm sure, get to all of that, and just looking at using 92 wins as an arbitrary point, because that's the number of wins that the Jays had last season and went into the wild card with 92 wins. To reach 92 wins at this point, the Jays would have to play 592 ball the rest of the way, whereas the Rays would have to play 495. The Rays could, play below 500 the rest of the way. So they've dug themselves a bit of a hole, and I guess we'll see whether or not they can start climbing out of it.
One thing this
Everybody
series,
else thinking Belton Varsho's like play this literally yesterday was like a microcosm of this team. He hits a home run, gives up a home run that bounces off his glove. It's just so much silly stuff happening in one game. That's like the perfect summary of what we've been all dealing with as Toronto Blue Jays fans. You expect the good, you expect the home run ball to get caught when in that situation. And right now you're missing the center field that probably would have caught that. But to that point, Varsho has been on fire too. So you can't only get so upset about it.
Good point.
This series was a series that I was just like the whole time, thank the baseball gods above we're not playing an AL East team, because had we played like this against an AL East team, this would be 3 losses. And that is the difference between playing the Minnesota Twins and playing every single interdivisional team that there is to play. Like we watched what happened when you give outs away to the Tampa Bay Rays and you give outs away to the Baltimore Orioles, right? You get swept. You lose a 4-game series 3-1. Whereas they took 2 of 3 against Minnesota, and really they could have won. Like it was some bad bullpen management that made it so that they didn't wind up having a better shot in yesterday's game.
Joel, you look like you got the hamster wheel spinning.
Yeah, I'm not like we're last, right? I have to play the devil's advocate and all this stuff, and I just don't like really want to, but I have to. Like, I'll watch it. I watched today, and the Varsho trade is like that's a really rough situation right now. He's left 110 guys on base this season, 110, and he has provided 46 runs between his runs scored and his RBIs. That could be 6-7 wins, like really, at this point in the season. It's he catches balls, but he's second in the league in left on base. And when I watch yesterday's game and he goes up and pats Vladdy on the like shoulder, Vladdy's like, "Don't talk to me, man. You're like killing this offense right now." He's a good player, but he's a 4th outfielder. And I sit there and everything is like putting him over. Like the broadcasts are putting him over. Everybody puts him over when he is as valuable this year as Randall Grichuk is in 20 games. According to F1, 20 games of Randall Grichuk is as valuable as Dalton Varsho's 9 defensive runs saved.
Well, hold on.
This is some recency bias.
Is it? Like it's recency, and then you realize that you traded 2 Warren Gurriel and another 1.5 in Moreno, and that's 3.5 wins just straight off on that trade. So it's like what's his batting average in his last 15 games? $180. What's his OPS?
Well, Joel, if you're just going to judge the trade on the last 6 weeks, then you're right. Then the Diamondbacks ran away with it.
No, but I'm just saying, like in a position where we are, this was division year. This was spend all the money. We're in last place. And we're talking like everybody, the broadcast, like everybody, every podcast you watch will talk nice things about Varsho when he has 1/3 of the left on base that the New York Yankees have as a team. 1/3. How many runs does that cost us? That is a boatload. And if that carries on and he leaves 340 guys on base this season.
Joel, do you actually think that's happening? I know you're playing devil's advocate here, but are you actually so worried about Varsho that you think there's no way he
has to show me something that he hasn't done at any point in his tenure with the team? So,
I want to jump in here.
It's a possibility.
I want to jump in here with a question because, again, full disclosure, didn't see this week's games at all. I watched 2 of them via Jays in 30. I'm reading headlines in the show notes. Is Vladdy broken? What's wrong with Vladdy? And then I'm hearing Joel say he doesn't even want to talk to Varsho because Varsho's so bad. In the last week, the numbers are better for Varsho. So I know it's 1 week, but well, okay. I can see Joel is crinkling his eyebrows. The old man stats I'm looking at, maybe not left on bases and weighted runs created, wind chill adjusted plus, but I never expected Varsho to be like the offensive juggernaut savior for this team. I did and still do want that from Vladdy. I'm just saying, I'd rather see Varsho hitting 211 than see Vladdy hitting 285, because Vladdy at 285 is costing us more games than Varsho at 211. Am I out to lunch with that?
Yeah, you're out to lunch. But the truth is, it's more team management. Let's cut the Varsho issue in half by saying, why is he batted 2nd and 4th for a third of the season? If he's in the 7th and 8th slot, I'm not sitting there and looking at 110 left on base. This is situational usage of a player who's best suited 7th or 8th in the lineup, not hitting, like, he's going to be a liability against bullpen arms who throw 97 plus. He's going to be a liability against lefties. Okay. That is not if your offensive skill set is that, and you're batting 2nd and 4th on this Toronto Blue Jays team, that is a massive issue, not only with the player, but the utilization of the player.
So that's an argument against Schneider.
Sure.
Or the guys in khakis.
Or the analytics putting that lineup together. Varsho being improperly used.
I'm with you, Craig.
It's 50. It's both of those things.
How much do you guys all think that the manager is actually putting a lineup card together with nothing, purely in a vacuum, and being told that you have to have a lefty in this 4th or 5th spot right now to legitimately, quote unquote, have a statistically good lineup? I can clearly see that right now that's not working, except for maybe over the last 3 days with Varsho batting in the 4th, 5th spot. But how much do you think that that's really in the world we live in today, that Schneider really has full control over that lineup card?
I don't think he has, I think that he has a tremendous amount of other people giving input into that lineup card. Ultimately, he is the manager and has final say.
Would hope so, but I don't know these days.
I would hope that he does. I would hope that he does. Otherwise, why bother, right?
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, just let the computer pick the players, right?
Blue Jays dad, hello, by the way.
Hey, well, welcome everybody. Welcome myself, everybody. Good to see you. Just got back from Target Field.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. Good little series to catch, I'm guessing.
Well, you know what's big in Minnesota is the state fair. Like, people drop a couple of grand on going to the state fair for a week. I finally get it. This is my state fair. This is the series that it's just that's what we live for here.
I love it. Buddy.
Target Field.
What's that?
The invade Target Field bit.
Yeah, it's a great ballpark, and once again, fans from all over Canada descended upon the park, and met people from multiple provinces, and it's just it feels a little bit like home.
All right. Well, that was a cheery interruption of the misery that we were going through. I mean, I don't have enough fingers to point in every direction as to who to blame. So I don't even know where do we go. Scott, I'm off. I've lost track of where are we even going from here. We just blamed the analytics department for Schneider, or Schneider for the analytics department.
Listen, I was trying to put a positive spin on a series win, and then Joel took the wheel, is what happened.
He didn't drive us into the ditch, but he
place.
pointed out that that's where we are. Okay, so back to the Vladdy question,
Mhm.
and we can talk what's wrong with Vladdy. But am I way off base in saying that is hurting? Like, I know he's still hitting 286 on the season, second on the
24,
team
yeah.
in home runs. Like,
Seems like that was in the first 3 weeks of the year, though.
sure.
It's,
Well,
it's
I
a
mean,
very quiet
I mean-
286.
sure. I
Yeah.
mean, look at Matt Chapman's 286, and it's even quieter, right? But again, Matt Chapman, I never really expected him to be a silver slugger or lead the team in home runs. Like, it felt like he carried the team for a bunch of time in April, but Vladdy hitting in the 280s. That's not a recipe for 100 wins, no matter what anybody else is doing, right?
1 home run in his last 15 games, and it was a softball pitch.
He's being out homered by Kevin Biggio. Let that sink in. Hey, by the
Blue Jays
way,
Dad, loving that.
and okay, this was going to be my topic for tonight, but is Kevin Biggio, has he just
No.
found a new approach? No, Jen's already saying no. Hold on. Wait,
I don't think
strikeouts are way up. Maybe he's just close your eyes and swing hard in case you hit it. Eh? Maybe?
it's a good principle.
It's a desperation move, right? If he didn't do something, he's going to AAA or he's leaving this team. Whatever. He's looking good.
He ambushed that homer in Tampa. That was the first pitch that he jumped on, which is
Good for
totally
him.
against.
Good
I'm
for
just gonna
him.
say that. I'm just saying that specific at bat was he ambushed a fastball.
I think Biggio and any success he's had recently just exemplifies the saying that a broken clock is right twice a day.
Well, look, all I'm saying is he's 4 for 13 in his last 7 games, and half the time he hits it leaves the park. That's good. Small sample size, sure.
Yeah.
That worked out pretty well for Jose Canseco and Jeremy Giambi for a little bit there
There you
too.
go.
And swing hard in case you hit it, right?
All right, real talk though. Vladdy, what do we do with this? Anybody jump
How
in?
healthy does
For one
everybody
thing, if
really
he-
think he is right now?
What's that?
He had that knee. How healthy does everybody really think he is right now? He did have that knee thing a few weeks ago. It doesn't look like he has his legs underneath him a little bit to me when he's swinging the bat, but at least you saw some of those swings that have been all over Twitter and whatnot. It's not the same Vlad we saw 2-3 weeks ago at the plate. At least that's my personal opinion.
I agree with that, but on the flip side, if he is that injured that it is affecting him the way that we're seeing it, he shouldn't be playing.
Agreed.
And I don't know if that's him not admitting how injured he is, or the team saying, well, it's not that bad, we can ride this out. Or I don't know. I would hope that wouldn't be it, but if this is all injury related, he shouldn't be playing.
I don't know.
I
I'm
think it's just
torn
the
on
swings that
whether
look
I
too
agree
awkward.
with that or not, because on the one hand, it's the Michael Jordan with the flu question, right? Like, him with the flu is still better than anybody else, but also it's not playoffs and we do need him healthy eventually, right? So maybe he does need time off. I don't know. Joel, your eyebrows are doing a lot of talking right now, so get in there.
So analytically, he's the only thing difference between like now and 2021 is the walk rate. Hits the ball the same, launch angle the same, exit velo the same.
Yep.
Everything is literally 99th percentile across the board except his walk rate, which is in the 44th percentile. It's the patience. So he's pressing. Like, he's clearly pressing at the plate because he feels the need to have to do it all. Okay. He went from being Simeon in front, Teoscar behind him, to not trusting what comes after. And he comes up there and he presses and he tries. They say it on the broadcast. He's trying to hit the 3-run home run. He doesn't feel, and then he hits a double play ball. It's not the pass the baton approach. It's not that. It's not, I trust what comes next. When he was at his best, he would hit a home run. He would hit a double. He would hit a hard ground ball, or he'd get walked. And there was like in that succession of like, but now the walk isn't there. So the walk isn't there means the patience to hit the home run isn't there. The walk literally coincides with the home run. So, and he's pressing. out in front of
Which is
everything
weird,
and-
Joel. It's weird because earlier in the year it was so impressive how he had managed to lay off those bad pitches and had such a good approach at the plate and was taking walks and going the other way with the ball and totally selfless in passing the baton. And it's just so wild to see when a team's on a losing skid, how much everyone's mentality changes, because it's not just Vlad that's slumping at the plate, although he's the most
prominent.
I mean, he's hitting in the 3-hole, so he's the big glaring hole there.
So with Vlad, Scott, you mentioned the first 2 weeks of the season, taking his pitches, right? Good command. He was being patient, wasn't trying to do too much. So first 13 games of the season, 7 walks, 3 strikeouts. Batting average of .412 and an OPS of 1.041. But in the 6 weeks since then, 11 walks versus 32 strikeouts. Good for a batting average of .247 and an OPS of 750. That's a 6-week sample size at that point. I don't have a point. I just think it's
no, it's a
glaring.
It's a big skid. Yeah, it's a pretty...
It's free fall.
Like-
247 from Vladdy that's not acceptable. It's acceptable for Matt Chapman, despite the hot start for Matt Chapman, because it's kind of the same thing with Varsho. Like, I don't expect Varsho to be a 400 hitter on this team. I don't expect
Or
Chapman.
Blue Jays dad, where are you at on Vlad and his struggles?
He looked horrible this weekend. It was, he's definitely not on his game at all. And so I think it's a good point about his possible knee injury, not having his legs under him, as you said, where it's like a lot of arms. He's doing a lot of flailing, which you're not used to seeing from him. But I also think that there just isn't that number 4 hitter that probably he's confident about. And, I don't have anything against Brandon Belt, except for I think he shouldn't have started the season with the club still coming back from his knee surgery. That's what my costly tweet was all about, is he's on Major League time rehabbing and also not knowing, considering his age, how he's going to bounce back. Does he have another year or 2 left in him? I was hoping that he did when they signed him, but this year he just looks weak to me. No, and I'm not trying to pick on him or anything. It's just, I guess I wasn't familiar with him with the Giants, so maybe he's always looked like that, but just watching him run the bases. And then when he tried to go for 2 in, which was a really costly error in yesterday's game. And there's just not that power behind Vladdy, not the power in front of him. I mean, Bichette and Springer are getting on base a lot. And then you got Vladdy and Belt coming up next. And it really killed a lot of rallies this weekend.
No, it has. And that's a really good point about this team just doesn't seem to have a cleanup hitter in the traditional sense of the word. Anyways, I mean, Brandon Belt has been very good in May, to his credit. He's hitting .350, on base of .480 and a slug of .500, but he's not hitting bombs. He's not hitting home runs. He hasn't had a home run in the month of May. And that was kind of the reason they brought him in, as that lefty bat who can go deep. So despite the fact his numbers are good, he's not really that. I'd rather see Belt in the 7-hole, but we can't have the whole team hitting in the 7-hole, right? Like, which is
right
where half the team should be right now.
And that's part of the issue with changing the approach from offense first to, a mix of lefties and better defense, right? And, to be fair, the offense first approach the past few seasons hasn't actually gotten them anywhere, really. Aside from a really embarrassing exit from the wild card last year. And so the change in approach, I think
it sure felt needed in the off season, right?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think it felt really necessary. But it's still leading to sort of similar results at the moment, with players left and runners in scoring position being left on base, and we don't have a true cleanup hitter, and all these guys, you're not really sure exactly where to put them in the lineup because they're not producing. And, when everything sort of centers around, or supposed to center around Vlad, as your offensive juggernaut, and he's not producing, this is
You know
what
who
this
would look
team
great
looks
in
like.
the cleanup spot, Jen?
Don't
Marcus
say
Simeon.
it. Okay. I thought you were
Oh,
going to say
didn't you?
Teoscar Hernandez, and I was going to come through the computer.
No,
at you.
I'm lamenting one
Yeah.
season earlier. Yeah.
I mean,
I'll
yeah.
go Lourdes and Rowdy.
Sure.
And we're gonna get to see Rowdy this week too.
I mean, we could probably build a pretty good team of former Blue Jays over the last 3 years, but
Well, looking at
Any
San Diego, they're
thoughts?
freaking panicking worse than we are right now.
Just to chime in on the postseason panic, I just wasn't there. I was not on postseason panic, on change the approach. We were an offense first team. I said, go more. We're an 800 run team. Let's try to be a 900 run team. Let's go get more offense. That was my mindset. Go get
yeah,
more
but you were also very much about balancing the lineup. Let's not rewrite.
Yes,
history
yes.
here.
I was very much about bringing in lefties, but lefties that would move the needle offensively. Like, I will happily sacrifice a Teo and a Lourdes if Freddie Freeman is coming back, and I know that I have a bat that I can consistently depend on. I don't want to sacrifice pure hitters for the idea of lefty batters when those lefty batters are either inconsistent with health or inconsistent with the bat, right?
So we're calling Lourdes Gurriel Jr. a pure hitter now. That's what we've become.
Absolutely. 100% pure hitter,
Certainly not a
285
glove.
guy for his career. Projects like Yuli is 39 and hitting 290. He's 39 and hitting 290. Lourdes is going to be 39 in 10 years and hitting 275. Lourdes is a better Yuli.
I hope we're still doing this podcast in 10 years, Joel. Oh, I'd love to revisit this.
Yuli Gurriel from 32
to tweet for
to
later.
39. Yuli Gurriel, two-time World Series winner, one-time World Series MVP, I believe, or a National League or an ALCS MVP.
One-time champion on Dancing with the Stars. We get it. Yuli Gurriel is a stud.
32 to 39 is his career.
So
Lourdes is
Joel,
29. He hasn't even gotten to the age where Yuli started.
So going to chat here, Joel, Maiden World of Whack says Yuli is 10,000 times better than Lourdes. And then Deb Barcy says, just because they do well on another team doesn't mean they will do well here, which is why next year when Kevin Biggio is playing for the Tampa Bay Rays, he's hitting 25 home runs and hitting in the 2-hole.
We have a whole different conversation on how the hell we are the most unfortunate island of baseball players in recent history.
All right. Sticking with the chat, I want to go to where was it? Jason had a comment about we need Bo hitting behind Vladdy. So just as we don't have a cleanup hitter kind of a conversation, leading the team in home runs. Obviously, the kid can mash. Joel, I know you like Bo hitting as high in the lineup as you can.
Yeah, I do.
Would it fix Vladdy?
Springer in the 4-hole.
Thank you. Yes.
I said it for 2 years, Springer in the 4-hole. He's not a leadoff hitter anymore. Doesn't project that way. He goes up there looking to slug. He's always gone up there looking to hit the ball as hard as he can. Put that guy in the 4-hole. You got a 4-hole hitter right there. Platoon the leadoff spot. Do something. Did they know? You could platoon it. You could, when Kiermaier comes back, why isn't he getting shots in the leadoff spot? Right? There's ways to figure this out without having to move Bo from kicking the shit out of the ball in the 2-hole.
Well, and that's exactly what we've talked about when we talked about our dream lineup, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, right? If
2 years ago.
you put Kiermaier in the leadoff spot and then go say, Bo, Vlad, Springer, Vlad, Bo, whatever order you put those guys in, but you've got yourself a much more solid looking top 4. And then I said I liked Merrifield in the 9 spot in the hopes of turning it back around up to Kiermaier, right? There are things that they can do. There is flexibility with this lineup. And that just goes back to what we said earlier. Why are they unwilling to try to tinker with this lineup? The Tampa Bay Rays will put out any combination of 9 hitters that they think will win them a game that day.
Yes, Jen, scream it.
Nobody has, oh, I am a leadoff hitter and that's all I do, or that's all that we'll put in, in the lineup for, right? It's ridiculous. And look what they're doing. And they always do stuff like this. So I just don't understand why. I don't believe in change for the sake of change, just to say, oh my God, we did something. But I do think we've got enough of a sample size at this point to say, this isn't optimal. Let's see if we can find something that's optimal.
The whole time they were playing the Rays, all I found myself thinking is, how would that organization line up this batting order? Like, how would they be massaging this batting order, and what would they be doing in the field to get the absolute most out of the guys they have within this clubhouse? And is Toronto even close? I don't know the answer to that, but these are just more questions. I'm not really coming up with solutions here.
Just be nice to have Springer behind Vlad, literally saying, what are you thinking, big guy? What are you looking at up there? Like conversing on deck before they go up, as opposed to Springer going up, having it as a bat, then coming back and sitting in the bench. Now they're literally behind each other, and you have the veteran on the team who's supposed to be the veteran talking to your young star and saying, this is what you should be looking for in this situation. I faced this guy 72 times in my career. He's going to start you with this pitch, right? Like, to me, a lot of that just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like baseball Jen's point about the Rays. Like, you don't ever get a sense that there's one guy on the Rays that's carrying the burden of, I got to perform. There's no sense of that there. It's a totally different team culture, and I just joke around that they have some sort of algorithm that they've been working on for about a decade now, that they just put out their lineup that way.
And Blue Jays, Dad, you could even go deeper than that, because it's not even just the players. You can go within their scouting department and pilfer that. You can go within their player development. You can pick and choose from their front office, and it doesn't matter what straw you pull out of that what's the gate kerplunk, right? With all the marbles, the marbles never fall with the Rays, and I don't know how they do it. It's so impressive.
If the Rays ever come asking for one of your players, you hold on to that player and you get all your analytic people on that player to figure out what to do with that player. And if the Rays let someone go, I mean, I think getting Kiermaier was awesome. Like, I love that. Okay. But when he got picked off this weekend, I'm like, does that happen if he's with the Rays? I don't know. And just about all the base runners getting picked off this weekend, it was unbelievable. The base running blunders that I think is just, it's just the domino effect of everyone thinking we're not doing well enough at the plate. We don't have it. If I try for this extra base, I'm going to help out the team, and it keeps backfiring. But anyway.
It actually makes me wonder if there's ever been an organization who has approached the Tampa Bay Rays about a trade, and just to see what prospects the Rays want, and then being like, you know what, this isn't going to work. And then being like, going to your scouting department and being like, find out what the Rubik's Cube is for these guys, because the Rays have identified them. Like,
exactly.
We were actually just talking about this on the Jaybird Watching podcast when we were playing Tampa last week. And we were talking about, we've seen it over the last couple of years. You try pulling that manager out of the organization to do this with on another team. You do this, you do that. It's the sum of all their parts working in unison is working for them perfectly. I really think that at the end of the day, they got a kid rolling dice that just picks the lineup every day. He's got 9 dice, whatever numbers come up. That's how they line up every day, because it's something random all the time. But you don't see one of those little pieces coming out of that organization and being 100 billion times % successful. You talk that Rocco Baldelli is like the only guy that's still currently employed by any other teams, correct? Is there anybody else that I'm thinking of? Obviously, Charlie Montoyo's a bench manager at this point, but none of the other pieces have really formed out into be anything as wonderful and crazy good as they were in the Tampa Bay Rays organization. I think there's just something going to that point that they are just running through everybody, and they just know how to pick that. And right now, to Jen's point, I think they'd be putting Whit Merrifield at the top of this lineup, because you're not getting that igniting factor from George Springer that you were getting in years previous when he was healthy. Whit Merrifield has been somebody I've been comparing to Reed Johnson over the last few weeks, because he's just found a way to contribute over the last few weeks, whether it's a stolen base and a key opportunity, hitting that base hit when he needs to get on base, making a good play in the field wherever he happens to be playing is the other fun part. So it's amazing the pieces that they get in that organization and how they would shuffle this lineup together.
Good point. I like the idea of Merrifield at the top as well. I mean, having him at 9 as the pseudo leadoff, for all intents and purposes, I guess is the same thing. But yeah, I don't hate a lineup that goes Merrifield, Kiermaier, Vladdy, Bichette, and then Springer, Chapman, Varsho from there.
Or maybe Jen, but just the idea that you can platoon as well.
Yeah.
Like
Why
you
couldn't
can go
platoon
Kiermaier, you
Kiermaier?
can go Merrifield. You've got two
Yeah.
prototypical leadoff guys out of those two, and you can kind of go with the matchup at the time.
Platoon the leadoff spot. I don't see why that one. If it's getting you a 360 OBP in front of Bo, 36% of the time you got somebody on for Bo, Vladdy, Springer, that feels more consistent and conducive for run scoring. I don't know.
Maybe it's the engineer in me. I just don't want to see Kevin Kiermaier get broken by moving him out of the 9 spot. Right now, he is hands down the best 9-hole hitter in all Major League Baseball. So,
Fair.
but maybe that's just that.
That's fair.
Yep.
And maybe a part too is to value the psychology of things. You know, like going back to the Rays again, if you don't have that mindset that the team depends on me, that actually, for a grown-up playing baseball, that means a lot, I think, for a dynamic. And the psychology right now, you can see really affecting Vladdy. I think that's major. And I think a guy like Bo Bichette, he's a guy that I think he's the lowest key player, like on the Jays, when it comes to just his ups and downs, how he handles himself. And so I do think when you have this club with different people thinking they're carrying it or they have to carry it, that's a recipe for disaster. And it seems like it's up and down the lineup right now.
I did, just to that point, in comparing with the Rays, Kevin Kiermaier has said that a big reason for his success this year is because he feels like he has to do less than he did with the Rays. So, for whatever that's worth. But yeah, the big guys at the top, it does seem like everybody's just gripping things too tight, running into outs on the base path, trying to stretch it into a double when maybe we didn't need you to, right? Vladdy chasing, honestly, expanding the strike zone because he's trying to do too much.
Adam, to touch on the base running here, and it's funny because it reminds me, I want to hear what you think, Joel, because you are such a big Moneyball fan, but it does remind me of the scene in Moneyball when they're down in the clubhouse and Billy Bean is talking to, I forget who it was, that's one of their base stealers, and he's like, you never steal a base. You do not run. You never run.
You pay me to steal.
Exactly.
And he goes, no, I pay you to get on first, not get thrown out at second.
And it's just like this team has given away so many outs. Like this team in the last 3 weeks since this.
He's talking to Ray Durham, by the way, if you want to know. He's talking to Ray Durham in that sense.
Thanks, Joel.
Okay, there. Thank you.
Durham stole that many bases that somebody would be considering Ray Durham to be stealing bases as his job. I don't remember him, but the White Sox stealing it. It's not like he was stealing 50 bases a year. I remember maybe 20, 30 for some reason. I loved watching him play with the White Sox, but holy shnikes, I don't remember it being like that.
Like maybe not everyone should have the green light. Like go over the percentages. All the analytics are available. If you're getting thrown out more than 10% of the time, it's done.
So this is an interesting number to probably, I don't know if anybody's ever heard this before, but when you get thrown out, you're taking an MVP plate appearance away from your team. Okay. Now, what an out, it takes about 1.4 at bats to acquire an out. So you take that, you multiply it by league average OPS, and what you get at the end of the day is you're taking about 1050 OPS away from your team from production by being thrown out on the bases. So when you try to take that extra base, you're like, oh, I was trying to help the team. No, you took an MVP plate appearance away from your team every time you get gunned.
Of course, only looking at the negative outcomes here, not accounting for the 14 stolen bases you do get versus the one time you're thrown out, and what that does to
that tells you want an 80 to 85% stolen base ratio. That's what.
Okay,
that
so here's the stolen base rate for the Toronto Blue Jays. Whit Merrifield, 14 stolen bags, 1 caught stealing. I'd say green light for Dim Whit Merrifield.
Green light for Whit.
Kevin Kiermaier, 5-0. I'd say green light.
But a lot of this isn't stolen bases.
Dalton Varsho, 6-1. I'd say green light. George Springer, 8-2 on the base path. I'd say green light. Basically, everyone else is about a 50-50 toss-up. 2-3, 2-2, 1-1.
Yeah, but a lot of the getting thrown out is stretching a single into a double, not getting there, being taken out at third base on a ball behind you, trying to take third base on a ball to shortstop. Like,
sorry, what's your point?
Like, stop overrunning
stolen
third
bases.
base. Like, they're running out in the most ridiculous spots, trying to take that extra 90 feet when there's no need to. That Springer overrunning third base yesterday was one of the most infuriating things I've ever seen, especially to start the game off. Like, and it happened again today, right? Like, Springer gets on first and out right away trying to steal second base. And it's just like, I understand that, 8 times he got that stolen base, and so it's only a 20% rate of being caught. But in that situation, why is he going for it?
I mean, the counter side of that is, like, there's also the dozens of times a year where a guy goes first to third. You know, a guy scores from second when he had no business scoring. Like, there are also all the times where it works out. This is a recency confirmation bias here where we're frustrated that we're running into outs. We're pointing out all these times, but we're not also remembering all the times where Lourdes Gurriel or Teoscar was effing useless on the base path for whatever reason. Teoscar, by the way, ludicrous speed, terrible base runner. We can all agree on that, right?
Yes. I think one of the issues, though, too, is when are you being aggressive and who is at the plate when you are trying to be aggressive? Right, because there are a lot of running into outs when the guy
Bo's
at the plate is somebody. When somebody is at plate like Bo, who you should be sort of more or less trusting to put the ball in play rather than running into an out and then changing the complexion of that bat by doing so.
Okay, but here's the difference: is when Vladdy is hitting in this double digits for a batting average behind Bo. And I'm on first base as a George Springer or as a whoever. I'm thinking, okay, Bo has a good chance of putting it into play. If I'm on second, I'm scoring. If I'm on first, I'm going first to third, and then Vladdy's ending the inning. For me, that's that's where my thought process is. That's why I'm going, I got a 90%, 80% chance of taking 2 here, and then if I do, I'm an RBI waiting for Bo. If I don't, I'm sitting on third and I'm a left on base for Vladdy because he's hitting 115 in the last 3 weeks or whatever the case may be. So I'm okay with that. But again, that goes to the whole everybody's trying too hard, right? Joel?
Yeah, and the fact that our team mentality was supposed to be like,
attention to detail.
Attention to detail.
Don't forget, take that guy out on the second mound visit.
Yeah, like I'm kind of. Every time I see it happen, I'm like, we're seeing it happen from the guys that we brought in because apparently Lourdes and Teo did it all the time. But when they did it, everybody smiled a lot and we hit a lot of home runs and we won a lot of games. So it's just like, and we wore jackets and the team was fun and they loved each other. And now like,
they hate each other now. They're all miserable about it.
You know, I thought I was told that like Vladdy was going to bring his party bag to this season and no matter who you brought in, he was going to have a great time with. That's not the case. That's a sad man.
Okay.
And
so, hold on. Because the team that was winning wasn't winning 105 games. They were a young core who had never experienced winning. So the expectations were not there. They were the Baltimore Orioles 3 years ago.
True.
Now there is expectations. Now 95 wins feels like a disappointment when you still lose the division by 5 games.
Yeah, but like, isn't that growth you would figure coming from your youth? When you're a team that puts up a 200 run differential and you're the 3rd youngest team in baseball with $100 million to spend on your payroll, you would assume that the youth would be the thing that puts you over the top.
No, you wouldn't assume. You would hope. You would hope, not assume.
Yeah, but you wouldn't give it a year and then change. 2021 happens and you change your approach. Why? 2022 happens and you change your approach more. Why? To me, that was something that you play that out for 8 years and you give that a chance to win for 8 seasons, because I felt like you build on that, not rebuild it or reorchestrate something else that might win. Like my topic of the thing, I'll just go right to it, was
Sure.
Baltimore rebuilt their stadium in no way for fan experience. They rebuilt it, and all of a sudden that team started to win. Okay. Also, they have a bunch of great players, but they took away righty power.
No, Joel. Let's give credit to the wall.
Yeah. Okay. Let's give credit to the wall, because it takes away righty offense and it bolsters lefty offense, which they have a ton of. They have a ton of lefty bats coming up, youth. That stadium seems built for the Baltimore Orioles to win in for 8 years. And then I listened to Shapiro say that he built the stadium because fans would get a better view. And I'm like, well, we got one team that's building their stadium to get wins, and one team that's like, it'll be better if you see our losses more. Right? Like, I'm kind of bad. We talk about Tampa Bay and everything to win. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, we're shifting our winning strategy. We're building a stadium that helps lefty hitters when we don't have lefty hitters. Then we go get lefty hitters that aren't so great anymore. And we wonder why Vladdy doesn't have a home run at home yet, because everybody's trying to push the ball to the opposite field. Like, why are you changing approaches and everything? I don't understand. Well, we got a thing in Dunedin that's Shapiro's most happy about. We got this building in Dunedin that we made, right? But we can't keep a runner from stealing bases against us. Nobody knows a slide step. So you can have the most technologically advanced equipment in the world, but if you don't know how to slide step or throw a pitch out or like the fundamentals of baseball, who cares what the technology does?
So I think the summary of what you were just referring to a little bit was the fact that the Baltimore Orioles retooled their team to play with that ballpark. I would bring up a question to you all here, and that is, if you had to point out the glaring strength of what the Blue Jays are, that would be something we'd be able to, rally the team around. What the hell is that right now for all of you? Because I think it's very contrasting, probably even amongst this group.
Aggressiveness. They're very aggressive. Can we play into their aggressiveness?
Well, before retooling, it would have been right-handed power.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right before retooling, it would have been right-handed power.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would have been.
I don't know what it is right now. If you had to answer that question, that's why I was bringing it up. Because right now, that's what they got to hurry up and figure out in the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, this is to a few people I saw in the chat saying, if we're all saying a 95 win team's a disappointment, what happens when this is an 85 win team at the end of the season? Everybody's going to start lighting, torches and pitchforks and storming the office.
Oh, we better. So, we're all in this together, right? Like, we're Blue Jays, Dad. You've got a pitch and a fork you can join in with, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think the starting rotation is a strength. I do.
So do I.
At least for 60% of it, or more. I think that the additions have been confusing when it comes to what's being produced. And I actually am not a fan of left, right, all that. I don't think that's a thing. I think you stick with what you have that's working, and because I don't think it really matters if you have a right-handed batter that can mash any type of pitching, or a left-handed batter that can mash any type of pitching. This is where I think things just got a little too complicated, a little too cute this year, and it's really messed with the lineup with having a good momentum of production throughout the whole lineup. It just seems that every second spot now is a hole. So anyway, yeah, they do have to turn this thing around, and I won't bring up Biggio right now, but I do think he's a guy that is. I would give him one more chance, and that's what I was trying to say on Twitter a couple weeks ago. Just give him one more chance of being in the field in different spots, and then put him in DH, and just have Belt be the odd guy out. And because I still think Biggio age is on his side. And I think you give him one more shot, because he can beat you with speed. He can do a lot that Belt can't. And that's where I just think you got to take your opportunity. But
so I'd love to see the temperature check on where you all honestly, deep down, genuinely believe this team is headed. And I know that I may be pushing against the current here in saying that I still honestly believe this team is going to be a playoff team. I predicted 93 wins in the offseason for this team. I still feel like this is a 93 win team. Are they going to win the division? I'm starting to definitely feel like that probably is a ship that has sailed. Now, that said, there is 100 games left and a lot can happen. But boy, oh boy, did that skid against AL East teams definitely hurt things. That said, I mean, again, and I know that the AL East was a different division when this happened. And I know that you can't just build a team and cross your fingers that things work out like they did in 2015. But when they acquired David Price, the team was 50-51. Like, they were a game below 500. And I'm well aware that this team should be far better off than that with the core that they've already built, everything that they've already gone through over the last 3 years. Now, that said, there's ups and downs, there's ebbs and flows to a season. And I personally still am positive, really curious, deep down, genuinely how everyone's feeling. Craig, we'll toss to you here. Do you feel like this team is a wild card team?
I think they have the potential to be a wild card team, but right now I'm wondering what the hell the catalyst is to get them there. That is my current wonder. I do think this is a team that can go that far, and I do think they have the legs. I do think it's mostly because that starting pitching is going to be the thing that carries them there. But if they don't start getting some of these things figured out, with offense getting properly done and the bullpen actually managing to hold some of the leads like we've seen over the last month, things are not right with this team. And I wonder what's that next piece to get them there. But I do think they have enough time to figure it out.
So this is a crazy, crazy thought. But Davis Schneider is just hit his 12th home run of the year. He has kind of come out of nowhere as this 25-year-old guy who can play every single position pretty much. He's even got some shortstop under his belt, plays left and right, plays third and second, hits from the right-hand side. With guys like Espinal on the DL, we're seeing the fact that Kiermaier and Jano are currently out. There are some at-bats to be had. Feel free to jump in here. Does anyone believe in catching lightning in a bottle? Does anyone believe that there are guys who, the Kevin Pillars out there, that maybe that could be a spark to this team?
Well, one of my favorite players do it a few years ago, Chris Colabello. I got to see him play in Rochester, New York here for years.
I would just like to weigh in on the first question there, Scott. You asked about our chances of making the playoffs. Yes. You got one opinion and then we moved on. I just want to weigh in on the fact that the Baltimore Orioles, with a .642 win percentage, and I know that doesn't mean the last 2 months dictates what happens in the next 4 months, but the Orioles are on pace for 104 wins and simultaneously on pace to lose the division by 11 games. That's fun.
So that has the Rays breaking a major league record then?
Well, that's what they're on pace for. They're 709 win percentage, on pace for 115. So
we're breaking it by 4 games, I think. Wasn't it 111? Wasn't that the Seattle Mariners?
I mean, you have to assume that the Rays and the Orioles will hit a bit of a skid at some point, right? But can the Jays get hot and make up any ground? That's the thing, right? The gap is so big right now that 2 major shifts have to happen for the Jays to make any real ground on either the Rays or the Orioles. And that's the position that they're currently in. If I am being completely honest, deathbed confession here, I don't think the Blue Jays are making the playoffs this season. And I think if they do, 2 things have to happen. 1, Vlad has to figure it out. 2, Manoah has to figure it out. That's not even addressing the bullpen. That's not saying we need to stay healthy. I'm setting those things aside. Vlad and Manoah have to figure it out. Quick.
Send them both down to AAA.
Like now.
You know what? The argument for Manoah, I understand that there's no one to slot into his space that is going to be better, quote
Doesn't
unquote.
matter.
But the
Doesn't
flip
matter.
side
Get the
is
catch.
Manoah has to get right.
Yeah.
And if that's not happening at the major league level, then that's the whole reason you send him down to AAA. Not because there's somebody better to take his place now, but because he has to get right. It is critical that he figures out what he's doing with that slider, gets his control back, gets his confidence back. The rest of the season kind of hinges on that.
Give me losses to Casey Lawrence every day, knowing that Manoah is able to work on what is ailing him down in AAA. And I know that I've read a couple comments on some videos that we've done. And one that stood out to me was basically, if Manoah can get right in AAA, then he should be able to get right in the majors. And I really push back on that. I really do think that a guy like Manoah right now, who has never struggled at the major league level like this, I think taking a little step back and being able to take a breather, and let's face it, yes, every player in Buffalo wants to win. But there's also a greater good. There's a reason why they're an affiliate, right? They're not going all out to win in Buffalo. And if they need to lose 2 or 3 or 4 games so that Manoah can get his slider right, can kind of get to the point where he's not feeling rushed on the mound and just looks comfortable again, I think that's the approach they need to take. Blue
And he
Jays
gets that
are,
whole robo strike zone thing in the minor leagues too, so maybe he'll get some extra calls.
exactly
what
right.
about
Build
this?
some confidence.
What about, I mean, I've been one that has said, who replaces Manoah? If we're going to go with sending him down, I'm not saying as comprehensive as Halliday's journey was,
Mhm.
but what about like all the way down? And just tell, like, what if you told him you're going to be gone for a month and you're going to work your way back up? And I guess I would be more confident in that rather than just because I think Manoah he's not the guy that bounces back and forth from AAA to MLB.
No.
He's not that guy. So I think you show him and you say, hey, this isn't a bigger demotion. This is a better demotion that is really committed to you taking those steps back. Because as we all know with Halliday, he came back with a discipline about his craft that that really humbled him, but zeroed him in when it came to that competitive edge that was a mature competitive edge. So I guess if we got to send Manoah down, I would say send him down lower. And here's another thing I just want to say too, is that I do think the team, because I do agree with Baseball Jen on this, I do think the team has enough as is to turn this thing around if players live up to their expectation and even just their season averages. Like everyone has been crappy at the same time except for Bo Bichette. And I think that if everyone just starts playing normally when it comes to getting their stats by the end of the season, what they ought to be, that's a pretty short window. It's a shorter window now than a whole season. And that means a lot of people being hot at the same time. So maybe it's a bad luck thing. Maybe a lot of those base running blunders. Yeah, it's pressure, but it's also bad luck. The ones I've seen with at third base, remember the 2 on Friday night at Target Field? We were right down by near the dugout. And I saw both of those plays happen. They were awkward ground balls to third. I don't know if they had the green light to come, like the contact play of coming home when it was hit, and they realized I'm done. And so they tried to get out of it. I know Kiermaier did it. And who else did it on Friday night? I forget. Was it Springer? I think it was 2 guys who wouldn't expect to do it. They were awkward plays. How about the one that Merrifield got thrown out at third? Remember, it was that the third baseman letting it roll and let it roll all the way to third base. This was like in Tampa, I think.
Yeah.
Let it roll all the way through. And then Merrifield, I don't think he anticipated the ball rolling all the way to third. That was a tricky play. Another issue of bad luck. What if it's bad luck that turns around and then players just playing their normal potential? The Jays could get really hot from this time forward.
So I just want to clear something up really quickly for folks in chat. So Larry Liedman says, can you guys figure this out for me? I heard that unless it's a hurt assignment, to send Manoah down, you'd have to put him on the waiver wire. So for everyone who's wondering, Larry, that is not the case. Manoah does have options, so he can be sent down to AAA without being exposed to the waiver wire, and they can work him back up whenever. Good question, though.
Also, we did have a little bit of confusion on the Roy Halladay rebuilding through single A, double A, and triple A. He did go down to single A in, I think it was 1999. He got a demotion to triple A after making his major league debut, but in 2001, he did pitch in single A for 13 games, and then I think it was 5 in double A before coming to triple A and back up. And to that point, having that in the organizational history would work in our favor with demoting Alek Manoah to single A, as to have a North
Being able to
star to
point to Hall
point
of
to
Famer, yeah.
and go like, look, we're not just worried about this year. Like this is the vision we have for you. Trust in the process. You know, this is not a disrespectful demotion. This is just, we want to do it the right way kind of a thing. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I necessarily agree that that needs to happen, but that's a good point, and I don't think would be a terrible idea.
I see in the chat that they were wondering if that was more of a psychological move too, that you would be able to get him confidence. I know that with the Roy Halladay thing, it was obviously he needed to, gain confidence and stuff, but he also went through a enormous retooling of his mechanics. I know Manoah's been complaining about his mechanics lately, but I think he's fighting himself a little bit more than he's fighting his mechanics. But maybe that's just my personal opinion.
I know Maiden's World of Wax says here, didn't Ricky Romero get optioned and disappear? And just want to clear up here, Ricky Romero, a very, very different scenario than Alek Manoah. Romero just had literally his legs were shot by the time that he managed to kind of get to the point where he was healthy again somewhat, and he just couldn't get right. And basically it was health issues that took Romero out. Alek Manoah is healthy. Alek Manoah's problem has a lot to do with timing, his slider, and just getting comfortable on the mound. And I think if anyone in the Blue Jays organization knew exactly how to fix Manoah, it would already be done. Right. So
our son of eyes could go far though. To your point.
Yeah.
It truly could.
I'll just throw a completely different mindset out for it right now, because we're kind of in a situation where we don't want to lose innings in any way, shape, or form. You want him to figure out 2 pitches. You want him to figure out his fastball. You want him to figure out his slider. That's what a reliever does. You put him in situations right now where he goes out and faces 3 righties or a core of righties, and you just specify his pitching right now. You still get Manoah, but you can kind of like put him in a good situation, maybe for the next 2 or 3 weeks, try to figure out those 2 pitches specifically, and then get him back to throwing. Like that's like, sending him down to the minors is something that he may need. But the thing about that Blue Jays team is that they weren't supposed to win the division when they sent Halladay down. So it's just kind of like you're giving up on what was your ace going into this season. And this dependent on being your ace, right? So if there's any way for him, like I said, the issue is those 2 pitches right now, getting the fastball down, getting that slider break where it is. And that's a reliever focus, 2 pitches. Go out there, throw your best fastball, throw your best slider, get those things lined up. And maybe you can still help the organization as a major leaguer, because we need all the help we can get in any situation. So.
Okay, but
so Warloo 22.
No, I got to jump in here, Scott.
Yeah.
I got just when we say that the problem here is his 2 pitches, those are the symptoms, and we don't know what's causing them. Is the problem, right? It's like when I say I suffer from migraines. Is it because I have a brain tumor, or because I'm diabetic, or because I haven't drank enough water today? Like there are a number of options. I would love to have fewer migraines, but just to say, let's just figure out fewer migraines is like an oversimplification. And I think that that's kind of the case with, he's just lacking on these 2 pitches. Like, okay, sure, but it could be so many different things. So
true, but I'm saying that you can put him in a position in the major leagues where you focus on those two pitches. And if you can get those two pitches right, that's a step in the right direction for him. Going up there, throwing 3, 4, 5 innings, facing lefties, put him in a position right now where he can help the team and he can potentially figure out what he needs to figure out by throwing, 4 innings to, or 4
okay,
at bats
so
to like
genuine point of clarification that I'm asking for here, and I could just be totally dumb on this. What is your plan then? To pitch Alek Manoah out of the bullpen and say he's only allowed to throw his fastball and his slider until things get sorted? Is that what we're doing?
I'm saying that
I might have misunderstood you. That's why I'm asking for clarification here.
So
what's your suggestion?
Once again, the issues with Manoah are everything. It's potentially diet, how he interacts with people, how he interacts with opponents, how he gets his game called, how he wants to call his own game. All of these things. There's a million factors. Cut all of it out and just say, listen, we want you to get 4 outs today. We want you to focus on throwing 2 pitches.
4 outs.
Just look, I'm not talking about turning him into a reliever long term. I'm not talking about taking away his ability to throw as a starter, but I'm just saying instead of throwing him down in the minors, and maybe, like you said, you don't know if that's going to fix it. We don't know what the issue is. So if you don't know what the issue is, and that might not fix it, let's try to fix it up here still in some way that could potentially help the ball.
So in that scenario, we would pitch him against 4 batters, and then we would burn our bullpen for the rest of the day. I just feel like as far as helping the team win goes, Casey Lawrence would be a better option throwing 7, even if they're ugly.
Yeah, but like maybe he needs an opener situation. Maybe you need a situation where you get Manoah through the first 4 batters of a lineup, and he comes in and you see if he can run in that situation. Just all I'm saying is that if there is a move that you can make for the major league team where he's still pitching and able to figure it out here, because we don't know if the minors are going to figure it out. We don't know if it's diet. We don't know if it's just a head situation. We don't know what it is. So if he can figure it out here, it's better than figuring it out. And I'd rather him figure it out up here.
And if any of this is psychological, though, that might make things worse, right? Like that type of demotion, however he views it, might make the situation even worse. I don't know. And how do you
I agree with you. I think that we have done it with Roy Halladay, who's like,
yeah,
I would say the best pitcher in organizational history.
I'd be concerned about keeping his arm still built up to start and throw 7, 8 innings if we're doing that sort of situation. To Adam's point, right? If the organization did it with Halladay, then nobody is immune from that same scenario, right? So I think this needs to be a bit of a longer term project in the sense that you are looking long term. We got to fix him for the long term and not just for this season. And so I think something like putting him only 4 outs doesn't address the sort of that longevity of getting him right. I don't know, but I also think if things were going to work out at this point, if you were going to figure it out in the majors, I mean, it's June for all intents and purposes. I think we would have seen more progress on that front at this point. I don't know.
So this is an interesting question in chat that does kind of tie into this whole thing. Warloo22 says, can someone tell me how Pete Walker gets to keep the guru status? To which I say, I don't know if he has. I think that the luster has worn off. The 100%. Magic around him being some sort of guru. Yeah, exactly. Blue Jays dad, curious what your feelings are on Pete Walker, because I know there's been a lot of attention from the fan base on John Schneider, and some are calling for his head. And we've just talked on the show many times that it just looks so bad on Atkins to fire Schneider less than a year into hiring him that I don't think unless he totally loses the room, there's any way that happens. But maybe it is possible that somebody like Guillermo Martinez or even Pete Walker gets the axe. What are your thoughts on Pete Walker? And do you still view him as the guru that maybe we all did a year ago?
I don't know if I give him that much of a special status. I would just say it's stability. I really don't look at Pete Walker being an issue. I think he's, from what we can tell, he's tuned into the game. He's passionate. He's, he has that good grumpiness about him when things aren't going their way, and he feels they're being cheated. Schneider, I think you're right. I don't think he's let go. I think, here's my total hot take. Atkins is on the hot seat. When he joined the broadcast booth a couple of weeks ago, he was like 110% positivity, man. Like nothing could be better in Blue Jays world when Ross Atkins was talking on the broadcast. And for me, that was just a little bit, suspicious. It's like you're just talking up everything and everybody and everything's good. And I think if there's any pressure, and this may, once again, a good point about focusing on Manoah's his long term rather than the short term. I'm wondering if someone like Ross Atkins is more really concerned about the short term, like back when you thought Alex Anthopoulos emptied the farm system, which he never did. Okay, none of those guys panned out. And just as another side note, we're talking about innings. This is why the Blue Jays won the R.A. Dickey trade. 200 plus innings a year, folks. That was huge for that time and for the franchise. You minus Dickey's 200 plus innings pitched a year with around a 4 ERA, a little bit less, a little bit more some seasons. That was incredibly valuable. So I forget what we were talking about now, but basically Pete Walker, good. Schneider, you're not going to let him go. Atkins, I think he's the guy that's managing with a sense of urgency, or operating with a sense of urgency right now.
That's really interesting. Larry Liedman says, at least Pete knows he went out to the mound. So a little shot there.
I think at some point, and I don't know at what point they're at because we're not in that room, right? We have absolutely no idea the conversations that take place. I do genuinely believe that at some point, people need to hear a different perspective, a different voice, right? So even like as a teacher, right, I know that sometimes students need to hear it from somebody else. They just need it said in a different way or in a different voice in order to like tap in.
Do you have accents, Jen? Can you do like you teach in different accents sometimes?
I explain it in Spanish or something like that, right? I do something like that. No, but seriously, right? Same thing with like, people who go to therapy. At some point you've heard everything that your particular therapist has had to say. You've grown as much as you can with that particular sort of advice or this or that. And it might be time to now then move on to somebody else where you can learn some more, right? You can grow some more. And maybe they've reached that point with Martinez and Walker. It is entirely possible that some of these guys have reached that point, right? And I'm talking about the core. I'm talking about, for instance, Vlad and Bo and Jansen, who have been around these same people for quite some time. The veterans coming in, quite honestly, I'd be interested in knowing what they think about the approach, since they've already come from other organizations. That would be a very interesting thing to know, but it is possible
like you're blowing my mind here, because that is so interesting, especially with the fact that when they did do their manager flip, I mean, basically that's all that changed. And Schneider had been there that whole time. So is this any sort of new ideas, or is this just or was that more of a scapegoat move to motivate the guys to, holy shit, they're serious? Sorry, Adam.
I'm just picturing someone hopping in an escape boat and getting away with it. So.
A real escape boat.
Real escape boat, yeah.
Kicking the cat down the road.
Kicking the cat down the road.
Yeah, no, I mean, firing Montoyo very much, okay, supposedly he had lost the room, which means they had stopped listening to him, right? I guess. But it was also partially a scapegoat move, and the core guys, like I said, Bo, Vladdy, Jansen, Manoah, like they've been hearing from these guys for years and years. It's entirely possible that they've learned what they can from them, and that it might be time to move on if we're continuing to see the same approach and it's not panning out. I'm not saying fire them today. That's not at all what I'm saying. But if things don't turn around really quick, I think that that's the first move, you know?
Are we
Little
in
spot-
a desperate times call for desperate measures situation right now?
I think they're headed there, potentially. Potentially.
I think so, because you're now risking, like, now the long-term signing of the youth is at risk. Like, this isn't, are they sitting there going, why would I sign here long-term, right? Like, to me, the issue stems with, I feel like, the fact that once we did make a managerial shift, that was a change in approach, because we went from like Latin American ball players, a Latin American speaking manager who could speak to them, to Merrifield, Belt, Bassett, Chapman, Kiermaier, Varsho. Like, that's a shift in completely an approach of using the strength that your manager had, then getting rid of the Latin American ball players that he could talk to, for players that John Schneider can now approach and play a different style, the attention to detail style of baseball, to me. And now you have just made a bunch of moves to shift into that style, to find out that that might not work 60 games into the season. So not only is it a panic mode, you can't change the approach that you've made, because your entire managerial approach was your team's approach, and you built around that new change in management and general managing. So it's just like, to me, it's finding out you went the wrong way and there's no way you can go back.
So real question here, and I'm really curious what the five of you think here, and everyone in chat, feel free to chime in here, because Andrew McLeod says, Jen, what is the Spanish term for systematic failure? Lost faith in Shapiro / Atkins. They're not working. So my question for everyone here, and chat, feel free to chime in as well. Do you folks believe that Shapiro and Atkins truly are tied at the hip? Or do you believe that, like Blue Jays dad said, it's Atkins who is on the hot seat? And the idea behind the fact that Shapiro can't move on from Atkins is a little silly, because I do think that it's interesting to see James Click, 2022 World Series champion with the Houston Astros, brought in as an advisor scenario, just there in the waiting.
Well,
It's interesting.
I said last week that if they don't make the playoffs, Atkins is out, right? His time is up. Shapiro, I think maybe to save his own self, if nothing else, right, would absolutely make that move. Do I think Shapiro could also potentially be on the hot seat? Yes, I do. But Atkins definitely, like Blue Jays dad, I don't think that was that much of a hot take, to be honest. I think absolutely, if this season goes south, Atkins is out. I think the retooling, or whatever you want to call it, the change in approach, firing the manager last year, I think all of that was like sort of that one last shot. Okay, we've been doing it this way. Okay, this hasn't worked. We're going to come at it from this direction. We're going to put all of our eggs in this basket, and we're going to, I think that was sort of a last ditch effort on Atkins' part. And I think very easily he'll be out the door if this doesn't head to the playoffs.
Okay, can I jump in with a quick asterisk just to complicate things on Jen's point here?
Always.
If the Blue Jays miss the playoffs, but they win 94 games, does that still apply? Because 94 games is a .580 winning percentage. Right now, the Yankees are the third wild card spot with a .582 winning percentage. So with the absurdly historic season that one division is putting together, if the Blue Jays still finish fifth in the division and win 94 games, if somehow the math works out that that's even possible, it's kind of crazy that we're 2 months in and it's the way it is. Even if we won 94 games and missed the playoffs, how do we feel about this front office? Is that something that we just write off and go, wow, it was a weird year? We won more games than we did last year. It was a step forward.
There's no way they win 94 and don't make the playoffs, though.
Well, no, I just told you it's totally fucking possible. The Yankees are on pace for 95. The Orioles are on pace for 104. The Astros are on pace for, I think, around 99.
I mean, Joel's favorite team of all time won 91 games.
Okay.
In a different playoff situation, but yeah.
To that point, the schedule
didn't
is
work
different this year too. So you're watching the Rays and the Baltimore Orioles, regardless of how good they're playing. They're still beating up on some teams that they should be beating up on.
Yeah,
they're winning more games because they're not going to be playing teams like us all the time. It's 12 games in our division now. The records are going to be catastrophically different this year. That was going to be the first move of the schedule thing. We have no idea how many wins actually gets, especially in the American League East this year, gets you into a wild card spot. It might be 95 wins at this point.
Here's how I'd like to just make a different dynamic in this discussion. I think that if the Jays win, let's say, what are we talking, 94, 95 wins or whatever,
sure,
and they do not make the postseason, I think that's still on Atkins, but not on Shapiro. Here's what I think. I think Rogers is happy with Shapiro from a business standpoint. The renovations, all that, like dealing with the issue of we can't get natural grass in this ballpark. We can't build a new ballpark right now. That's going to be 10, 15 years out or something like that. I think they are happy with the changes. And I also want to make a point about the changes. So we're talking about earlier point about Baltimore rebuilding their stadium for their team. The Jays are doing it for their bottom line.
Yeah,
and the bottom line is this.
Yeah.
Gas is in the seats. It's that simple.
Phase 2. It's all about phase 2. It's not about phase 1. Phase 1 sets up phase 2 in the improvements of the Rogers Center. Then now you're taking all the real fans, all the peons, get them in the outfield zones, having fun with their families and drinks and social atmosphere, so we can get all the good seats to corporations. And now it's $1,000 a seat to have good baseball tickets. And so that's where I just don't be brainwashed by it. We're being brainwashed. Like, oh, now I can have drinks with Hazel May out in right field. Yeah, that's all cool and stuff. But the issue is home plate lady and those other season ticket holders since 77 and their families are losing all of that. It's all changed. You're not going to see her probably sitting back there anymore. And anyway, so I think Shapiro he's winning with the corporation. Atkins will suffer for the performance on the field if they do not make the postseason and go beyond.
I absolutely agree with that. I was sort of thinking something similar when the renovations were brought up earlier. The renovations have nothing to do with the team that is on the field and everything to do with putting money in the owner's pockets. That's absolutely correct.
My buddy went to a game 2 weeks ago. And he was telling me that he has never in his time of going to the Rogers Center felt so sucked of every dollar he possibly could spend. He was like, it was mind blowing being up in that 500 center and like the amount of places he could just go and have a drink or every little thing. He's like, they set it up beautifully to suck every penny out of every person they can.
And there's
Blue Jays fans.
They're serving in one of the areas. They're serving alcohol apparently into the 9th inning.
Right? Yes. And it's like this whole thing where people are like, we know they serve booze till the 9th there. And there's like huge lines and stuff.
This sounds like the weirdest episode of the new season of Black Mirror. I don't know. Just this whole phase 2 dark conspiracy and the corporations and the common man and the resistance. Don't let them fool you. Wake up to the Shapiro bullshit. I love it.
I mean, we all saw that article on how much those seasons ticket prices are going up, right? And I mean, I've sat in home plate ladies seats several times, actually. Yeah, I can't even imagine that jump in price for all of those people, not just the people that we see on TV behind home plate, but that whole section there, right? It's
Home plate lady's going to be section 524, ladies. Sad times.
That was a
All
good
right.
one, actually. That was really good. Print up the t-shirts now.
Get on the merch. Yeah.
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 All right.
Something
We
with
got
like
half an hour
riots
left,
for
and we haven't really got
Topics,
to
right?
our topic. So let's
We haven't talked about anything.
been a bit of a
What
sloppy
happens when you have a
episode,
fun
but
group?
yeah, no, this has been a lot of fun. I hope everyone in chat and listening on audio tomorrow is enjoying it as much as I am. Okay, so let's get a little clarification here, because I know sometimes we've touched on a topic that someone was planning on bringing up today, and we just said, all right, let's just get to it right now. So we're just going to go around. If we've already talked about your topic, shut up and we'll move on. If not, let's get into it. So Craig, let's start with you. Have we addressed your planned topic for the day?
You did right off the bat. I wanted to talk Jose Barrios a little bit into that fact that I'm starting to see the Jose Barrios I fell in love with here in Rochester, New York, when he was playing in Twins AAA, and it's starting to feel like he's got his competitive edge back a little bit. It's not going to ever be perfect, because riding the Jose Barrios arm for even back when here, it was always a very ups and downs situation. Even like I said, when he was in AAA here, but it was never ever even close to seeing what Blue Jays fans saw last year. That's why I figured at some point the mental part of his game will click back in and he'll fall back into place. And I think Blue Jays fans are starting to see that over his last 3 starts.
His curve or slurve, whatever you want to call it, that thing is right
Reaper.
back. Like, oh, she's a beauty. And the way
Can-
he's locating, like,
can
again,
we-
you're right.
Can we attribute some of this to the new role that he's found himself in? Like, what, he's our number 4 guy this year, as opposed to when we traded for him was
He doesn't
our
have to be the guy
number
anymore.
2.
Because
Like
I
he
think-
was, yeah, he was the guy, right? I know Joel's giving me looks like he's better than Manoah, right? But like, for
No, I
all
agree
intents
with
and
you.
purposes, Manoah was our 1, right? Like, we have a underperforming 1. Gossman's doing great. Bassett's doing great. Barrios as a 4 is freaking awesome this year. Even Kikuchi as a number 5 is like a sick number 5.
Not to mention his cat-like speed and reflexes today off of the bench. Hey, I see that.
Oh,
Oh, Kikuchi,
Fly
the
ball,
ball
right.
that went into the dugout. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Can I say
Gatorade
something
cup
about-
went up in the air. And
Can I say something about Barrios? What I think was his problem
Please.
last year? Here's my
Please.
another hot take. Here we go. Shortened spring training. There was a short
about
spring
that a lot,
training
right?
last year, and he had opening day, and he was terrible. And I think that got him on the wrong foot and messed up his mechanics. But I've always believed in him, not only because he's my favorite, but because he has the stuff. It's not like a number 4 or 5 or a quad A pitcher that's like, well, if he could just be Josh Towers, he'll be awesome. He
I love how
has
you
the
and I are the
stuff.
same go-to guy.
It's just that he has the stuff to be number 1, number 2 in a rotation. So I think it was shortened spring training messed him up for the season last year.
Well, on the subject of shortened spring training, then, how much are we chalking that up for Alejandro Kirk and the season he's having? 'Cause
I think it's had way more to do with this than anyone is giving it credit for. I think he came in and Kirk never found his swing. Like, all of these guys kind of found where they normally are in the batter's box going into April. We all know how hot this team started, and Alejandro just wasn't there. And you're seeing incremental positivity here, right? Like, you are seeing progress
Are
on
we?
Kirk's part. I think we are. No,
Well, I'm just
anyone
looking at the
else,
numbers in May. Okay, numbers in May: batting average 203, OPS 520.
okay. Well, I take it all back then.
I don't
No,
know. I mean, there's more to the
truly.
numbers than just the numbers, right? But I mean, if we just pencil in April as his equivalent for spring training, and then say, okay, May is his first month of the season, still just not that good.
I think it's
A lot.
possible also that Kirk had a really fantastic season last year and may not recapture that again, which was why I advocated trading him last season when his value was the highest.
We all did.
We all
I mean,
did.
I
But this is what's-
I
wonder.
think that was probably the other one. I saw
There-
him
is
hitting
there-
bombs
is there-
in Bluefield, West Virginia.
Is there anyone
So-
here who thinks that Kirk is who they wanted to move to? Like, I truly think that the organization wanted to move Kirk to and couldn't, right? Or do we have
I would
so little
assume
faith in this front office that you think they were
I
trying?
honestly have no idea. I
Yeah.
have no clue.
Yeah.
Here's my
They had
guess
the
is
show
that
pony and Gabriel Moreno right there. Nobody wanted to go down to even a guy that was an all-star last year. Everybody's thinking toward the future, and that's what you saw in that trade with the Diamondbacks. They wanted Moreno.
But also, I mean, just based on the way this team has like unfounded, arbitrary belief in a guy like Kevin Biggio, I just wouldn't be surprised if they did like feel high on Kirk. We're like, no, we believe in him. Like he can shoulder a load of 4 starts a week.
Joel,
Listen,
come in and defend Kirk here. You right? Those furrowed eyebrows. That's coming to the rescue of Alejandro Kirk here.
God, I hope so. No,
Joel does such a great job of raising his hand without moving his hands. He's just
Yeah,
like you
it's
can tell.
all
He's
in
like,
the
I'm
eyes,
waiting
yeah.
to jump in here, guys. So anyways.
It's a tough situation with Kirk because with the team, there's so many. They put faith in guys that you don't know if you can depend on a 5'8", 270-pound catcher. You just like there isn't really a history of so many 5'8", 270-pound catchers having 15-year careers in the bigs, right? So that's a situation where if you're dangling Moreno versus Kirk for me, when Kirk's value was high, yes, get rid of Kirk because I will take what Moreno has in his athleticism. I believe that projects better. Like we're all feeling that way, right? I think we all felt that way. Kirk, his bat, when it's on fire, seems like it could be a 4-hole hitter bat, right? When he the first 2 months of last year, it seemed like, you can't strike this guy out. He's going to hit the ball to the gaps and he can drive people in and he can be a middle of the order bat. And when that's not there, then you're looking at a guy who can't throw out runners, and the guy you got rid of has a 94th percentile pop time. So it's just like it's like it's a lot of our holes are being exposed, especially the fact that we're being run on the most in Major League Baseball. That's another thing too, right? So yeah, I would have advocated that when Kirk's value was at its highest, that's when you just get you got to go. You got to.
Is Danny Jansen able to get hot without instantly getting injured afterwards? Like it's just as soon as his bat heats up, I'm like, oh no, here it comes.
Yeah, it's like the big diesel engine needs to regen every once in a
all
while.
looking away.
I wanted to say something about Kirk. I think I don't know if this has been said before, but I mean, he did have a kid.
Yes.
Right around spring training. And there's only one guy that I know that can show up at spring training without doing much and start mashing balls. And that was Matt Stairs. That guy said he never swung a bat in the off season. He just showed up and started mashing. And so it's a special gift to be able to be that guy. But I also think Kirk, if there was the option of including him in the deal instead of Moreno, I'm just going to guess it's another Atkins managing with a sense of urgency, saying, no, Kirk is the win now guy. Kirk is the win now guy.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I've been saying that Alejandro Kirk is
that.
destined to be our DH in the next 2 years, regardless. And I don't think that's going to be much of a move on that. If you're going to be holding on to Danny Jansen, you're going to hold on to somebody like Taylor Heineman or somebody like that just to be the other catcher. And then put Kirk in DH.
What about that Varsho guy? I heard he can play catcher.
Where's that catch?
I don't think they're
But
going
he is
to.
50-50 for catching balls in center field that go over the fence now.
He's 1 and 3.
Okay, 1-3.
33%.
It's that damn height that he's plagued with. Is it crazy to think that we see Varsho behind the plate even once during Jansen's stint on the IL here? Again, if we're in a desperate times call for desperate measures situation.
I don't think it's completely crazy.
No, but I will say
I think it's part of why they got him. Sorry, Scott.
Right?
No. I here, like, I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong here, but if you were to say over under 0.5, I'd say over. But if you were saying over under 1.5, I'd say under. I really think they're trying to avoid having him behind the plate.
My fantasy baseball team, that's working out pretty well, though. Just saying.
Yes.
He hasn't been like, he doesn't know the pitching rotation. I don't think he's even tried to learn it. So
He
if
said he
does
hasn't even caught a game like in a bullpen since spring training, he said. So
Desperate
So-
times,
Still probably
guys.
minimal.
Desperate times. I don't know. Crazy
bring
things
Russell
have
Martin
happened.
back.
There you go. All right.
He plays catcher. Who's taking over for him in the outfield right now? Unless you bring
Merrifield.
up like somebody like Spencer Horowitz to play left field. Well, we don't have a second baseman right now either.
Got Biggio.
Unless you
Biggio's
are-
hitting bombs.
And trust in
half the time.
Biggio and Espinal.
I don't know.
This is actually a perfect place for my topic. If you
Okay, yeah, let's
don't
go to you
mind
then,
me
Scott,
slipping
please.
in here, Adam. Yeah. So this is the third game in a row that Spencer Horowitz has been in left field for the Buffalo Bison. He's a lefty bat. He's hitting .335 currently and started slow. He has been mashing the ball with everything he's doing outside of home runs, pretty much. Kevin Kiermaier possibly could be at the point where they need to make an IL decision. So if you're seeing Horowitz, who's normally a first baseman, getting these reps in left field and also a lefty bat, could we see Spencer Horowitz as the possible replacement in an emergency scenario where Kiermaier maybe's got to hit the IL?
I think you
Everyone's
got to
like,
play the hot hand. I think you got to bring the hot hand.
you guys
up.
are like, this wasn't a topic, Scott. This was a yes or no answer.
You talk somebody that could be a catalyst. If his bat carries over even half of that, he's going to drive in some runs near that bottom of the order that we were talking about. And it could be the same as what you were eventually hoping to get from Brandon Belfort or any of those guys that they were going to be trotting through the DH spot, and somebody you could have on this team for the foreseeable future. Been a high level prospect for the last few years. Give it a shot.
And he's 25. He's not a kid, right? Like, yeah.
I don't know. Why take a chance on a guy with upside when you can put Ernie Clement out there instead?
Oh, you're hurting my hometown guy, man.
I don't know.
I have 3 friends that went to high school with him.
Oh, there you go. I don't have anything else to add to that. Yeah, I think Davis Schneider feels like, sure, I think he should have a chance. Do I think he will? I don't think he probably will. I think we constantly see guys like Josh Palacios instead and Nathan Lucas. It's just, I don't get it. I'm flabbergasted by it. I don't know. Anybody else want to chime in on the use of the upside minor league guys or the lack thereof?
It has been weird to see them put Nathan Lucas on the bench, and when they have chosen to give him opportunities has been, I don't know. It's kind of like Craig, you said with the Tampa Bay Rays, where they just like take a child and blindfold him and let him throw a dice. And that's how they, that feels like the usage for Nathan Lucas. I can't understand it. And then when they bring a guy up, he's not getting any at bats or any opportunity. Otto Lopez.
It
I
has
know,
to be
weird.
the least useful bench in Major League
Yeah,
Baseball.
It's weird.
100%.
And I
Right.
understand that.
Clement
I understand
got
that the Blue Jays aren't loaded with top end prospects right now, and I know that when you look at the Buffalo Bisons, as much as a good team as they are in AAA, there aren't a ton of guys that are projecting with a super high ceiling. But dudes
What are you
like
talking
Horowitz,
about? We have Addison Barger, the savior at shortstop.
all I'm saying is that dudes like Spencer Horowitz and Davis Schneider, they make good major league players in tons of scenarios. There's lots of guys like that who weren't a top 100 prospect, but have been a good ball player or 25 years old and get called up and fill in just fine. And maybe you can catch lightning in a bottle.
You're
I don't
being
know,
too loud.
man.
I stopped it 3 times.
You're not muted, Craig.
Singing and everything.
Mute your mic before you hit your kid.
This is the best, most walk-off thing ever.
I did mute my mic. You're kidding me.
Well, if you're arguing with us, that's not a good sign that you're right.
What the hell is going on with my setup then?
All right.
Oh,
All right.
it's
Who's
going
got
wrong.
another
Sorry, guys.
topic? Joel, Blue Jays dad,
Mine was
Jen.
Mine was
That's
the,
on the right
the
line.
stadium design.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk stadium design then.
Oh, we did. Yeah, mine was mine.
You're good with it?
Was the idea that they built more
The Baltimore
for fan
and-
experience as opposed to winning.
Rich
Uh,
people instead of
yeah.
the team. Yes.
Yeah,
So should we have just stayed right-handed heavy and bring in the left field wall?
if you wanted to win more.
All right, there you go. I still want 7-foot outfield walls, so lower them. That's what I say. Jen, you were good with that, or do you have anything else you want to bring up? But you usually have a backup.
I had a topic. 5 days ago, Hyunjin Ryu threw a bullpen session and says that he is going to be back mid-July after the All-Star break. Assuming that is true, assuming that he is ready to return after the All-Star break, I would like to hear your predictions about how he fits into this team.
Well, I think he's going to be the savior, right? He's going to step in right after a year after Tommy John surgery and be our number one pitcher.
He will replace Manoah. Clearly.
Yeah, exactly. I think for a lot of reasons, Ryu's addition is going to be fantastic for this team in July. I think that they may even go with a 6-man rotation for a few times just to give some guys some rest. I mean, we've been very lucky, knock on all the wood in the world. Bad Tacos have not touched this starting rotation, and they're the only, I think I saw a stat, and I could be off. It might have just been the American League. So correct me if it's not all of baseball, but I'm pretty sure they're the only team in all of baseball to only have used 5 starters to this point, which is literally unheard of.
In an absolute peak year for Tommy John as well.
They also, that's a great point, Joel, that this is the most Tommy Johns we've seen in a season in a long, long time. It might even be ever. And on top of that, the Toronto Blue Jays starting rotation leads the league in innings pitched. So I think being able to go to a guy like Ryu, who has been there, has been the ace on a rotation before, is a wily dude and doesn't rely on velocity. If he might be able to come in and truly pitch his way into a playoff spot, if this team is a playoff team, I'm excited about Ryu.
Okay, so early in the season, we kind of looked at Ryu and even Chad Green as like free trade deadline acquisition pieces, right? These are guys who can contribute. We don't have to give up anything to get. But now I'm starting to wonder, is that going to work to our detriment where it's an excuse to not go out and pull the trigger on something now? Maybe we don't go get, reach early on a trade for a starting pitcher that could help us because we're looking down the road too far and going, well, we can maybe figure it out with Manoah. Maybe he can limp us to the All-Star break, and then we got Ryu back. And so is that maybe going to work against us now, or am I just being too pessimistic?
As long as they're not pulling that with Chad Green and not bolstering the bullpen because of that, I'm actually fine with them not going out and getting a starting pitcher. But if they are going to sit here and point to Chad Green and not bolster the bullpen, I mean, I know Blue Jays dad will lose his mind.
Green has no timeline for return. That was why I only asked about Ryu.
Okay.
Mhm.
So with Ryu,
but Green's jerseys are ready for purchase on MLB Shop. They're there. It's really funny.
Amazing. Okay, so worst case scenario, then Manoah gets sent down to AAA, single A, whatever, doesn't find it this year, is not a good starting pitcher for the rest of the season. And when I say good, like sub-4 ERA from Manoah. Are we okay with just Ryu as our 5th starter and him being another month and a half away? Or is there a need to bolster the starting rotation? Are we just good?
Well, here's my question. Do the Blue Jays have the chips to make a deal at the deadline? Do they?
That's a great question. Another question to add to this, do they even want to, because I think they have $1.5 million before they get bumped up into the second luxury tax, which is going to increase the percentage that they need to pay? And are they willing to do that? Like, are they literally working with almost zero prospects and also only 1.5 million?
These are great questions, and I hope whatever producer for Blair and Barker that's listening to this puts it in the show notes so they can answer it for us.
So
We're great at questions.
I would argue something that Blue Jays dad said earlier, which was that Anthopoulos did not empty the farm system because none of those prospects panned out. At the time that he traded them, though, they had value, right? They had value to get something in return. From that perspective, he absolutely did empty the farm system. And as it currently sits, those assets do not exist right now. Right. So whether or not they pan out in the future is sort of irrelevant. It's what value could they bring back right now?
Right. And baseball, Jen, I think that was one of the skills that Anthopoulos had, was hyping up his farm. You always heard about all those guys. They hyped them up. It's like Ross Atkins when he was on the broadcast a couple of weeks ago, hyping up the team.
He also knew his foot was out the door. He knew he was gone. And he just said, let's go all in. This is my last year here.
Right. But,
So maybe that's what Ross does this year in the hot seat.
So
Atkins, same situation.
See ya,
Covers are
Ricky.
differently stocked, though, to your point. Yeah, that would hurt.
I mean, if the Jays have the go-ahead to take on money, who knows? If Atkins' back is against the wall, we could see a very, very interesting trade deadline.
Any team that increases their season ticket prices by as much as they're increasing theirs for next season can damn well go to the next threshold.
Yeah.
What was the increase on season ticket prices? I just saw the article, the headlines that people were upset. Prices are up. I'm out west. Season tickets is never an option for me in Edmonton.
I heard it was up from $100 a game to $1,000 a game. That's what the article said.
I think they went back on it.
That's mild.
I thought that they went, there was an article that said there was an 800% increase, but they also went back and said it would be 180% increase. And that was just a situation where the seat was being elevated in status and it wasn't the norm around the stadium. But I hear that the season tickets are up 180%.
Okay.
As a norm. So that's still staggering. It's going from 15,000 to 38,000, I believe. So that's a big jump. Here's an interesting play on Ryu. Because everybody's talking Anthopoulos. Anthopoulos made the deal for Eddie Rosario that year where he was already hurt. Can we see an inverted deal where somebody may want Ryu? And we could take on some of that cash and trade Ryu for somebody who helps us now get to July whenever he would get back, because we could sure use some help before we have no idea what that date when he comes back needs. You know,
well, you better get the hype train going if that's the case.
That's what I'm saying. Like, hey, he's back in July. Hey, does anybody want to feel started? Can we take somebody who can give us something right now?
We can't wait to put him at the top of our rotation. He's going to be
getting our ace back.
The radar gun hit 100 for you. You're like, you see this thing? 100.
Wow.
We'll move him for anyone, but Tampa Bay, don't you dare apply. Like, that's like literally my biggest fear is watching Kevin Biggio and Hyun-Jin Ryu play on the Rays and totally dominate in 2024.
World Series MVPs.
Yeah, just like, no.
All right. Blue Jays dad, you're the last one to maybe have a topic, and I hope it's Kevin Biggio.
Well, it could be Biggio or the bullpen, whatever one we want.
Let's go bullpen. We're getting a lot of chat in the comment about the bullpen.
Yeah, so bullpen, I mean, I've been feeling this way since the wild card series when you saw Schneider managing in a desperate, from a sense of scarcity in his pen where he had to go to Romano early and then Romano didn't have it. Then what do you do? Like it's, Swanson, I think was a great pickup, but he was not number 1 or 2 out of the Mariners bullpen. He wasn't. He was a third guy, setup guy. I know he had some injury stuff last year, and so, why we didn't see him in the postseason. Blah 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 blah. Swanson was a great ad. Romano, I think, is a great relief pitcher. I think that the rest of our pen are guys that are more 5, 6, 7, 6.5 inning guys. And I think we do need a big arm at the back. And that just makes everybody better. Everybody gets better if you get one more elite back of the bullpen arm. And we saw it with Baltimore. Other teams that can bring in a guy that's consistently throwing 100 plus. And I know it's not all about speed and you need location. I get all that stuff. I'm just saying when guys have played a whole game, they are tired in the 9th inning. And if you can have a guy there that's humping it up at 100 miles an hour plus, that is a game changer. And once again, I think probably I haven't heard your opinions on this, but I've been big on Romano throwing his fastball more. He needs to lead with the fastball and then have his breaking ball. That's been a big, I think, issue for him. I don't know if it's his arm. I don't know what he's thinking or if it's what he's told to do, but I want to see a power arm added to the back end of that bullpen. And then everybody gets better. The game gets really short when you have 3 guys that you can trust to come in and get some swings and misses.
Yeah, it's hard not to agree with that, Blue Jays dad. I know that the dream in my scenario here in my brain would be Nate Pearson continues to take steps forward and we can go to him in those high leverage situations. I would love to see a guy like Hagen Danner or Troy Watson or Yosfer Zulueta hit to a level where they are dominant enough to take the next step up. I would love to see an acquisition of a big arm like Liam Hendricks. I mean, there's plenty of guys out there to choose from. Hendricks is just the biggest name on the obvious trade market. Because I really like the idea, the reason I bring up Hagen Danner and Zulueta and Troy Watson, all 3 of those guys are hitting over triple digits. So yes, maybe they're that guy that, yeah, you don't bring them in unless it's the 6th inning and it's the bottom of the order. But having that guy in the playoffs that can come in and throw 103, every once in a while, and I mean, frick, Philadelphia was full of them last year, right? Like guys that now we're seeing, they're struggling, right? Because that's the thing with big arms in the pen. You never really know if they're going to be deadly, but you need enough of them with some gas back there and that special pitch that maybe a few of them hit, right? So I'm with you 100%.
I just want to jump in and give some love to Nate Pearson. Scott, you touched on him.
Mm-hmm.
As far as our bullpen goes, he is 2nd in ERA. He is 3rd in WHIP. He's 3rd in opponent batting average. 2nd best home runs per 9.
Yeah,
I'm loving what we're seeing out of Nate Pearson. He's pitching 2 innings
and going multiple
when
innings.
needed. Yes.
Multiple innings. Yes.
When do we
is
think
everything I
Schneider
could have
starts
asked
using him
for.
that way?
What's that?
When do we think Schneider starts using him that way?
He's seen tipping his hand a little bit recently, letting him go that way a little bit, but it's been very, he hasn't come in for that 2 inning outing a couple of weeks ago, until that Tampa Bay series where he came in and kept the game close for those 2 innings.
Joel, your face is giving you away again. Mantis Toboggan says, I really want to hear from Joel. So, buddy, all those words that are scrolling behind your eyes, let them out.
I think I would more so be looking for a bat that allows my bullpen to be more reliant on 5th tier, 6th tier guys. Do I want a big bullpen arm right now? No, I think offense, weirdly enough, maybe an outfield bat is probably what we need. So I like, do we need bullpen attention? Yeah. But I think that we've got to hope that the moves that we made for bullpen arms, we have to hope that Trevor Richards for Rowdy and Swanson for Teo holds up, because we need what we lost offensively. I think more, we need to put ourselves more in positions where we can close out games than try to, if we don't have the lead, we can't close out the game. So we need the
with
lead
Brandon
before-
Belt hitting with good numbers right now, but no power. Looking back, hindsight wise, do you, even though Joey Gallo's only hitting still 195 in Minnesota, would have you rather Gallo in this lineup hitting 12 home runs, but also striking out like he always does?
That's a good question. Yeah, like there was a situation, there's some players out there, right, for $12 million on a 1-year deal. Bellinger was another one that you wanted to, like, are you looking at a player who, Bellinger and Gallo have insane upsides if the shifts end up working and they find their swings. If Gallo's hitting 230, he's a very productive hitter, right? If he's batting 160, he's not. But I think it's a situation where Bellinger and Gallo aren't coming off of injuries. They're younger. I think they have a higher ceiling than Belt. So maybe you just don't get those other two because they were grabbed quicker. But I feel like I would have probably been leaning towards somebody who's looking to, Gallo's looking at a 1-year deal so he can sign a 5-year deal after this, right? So it's kind of that situation. Same thing with Bellinger, right? They're looking, it's almost like picking up a walk here and of a guy who's in his youthful, what you consider his prime, and he wants to say, I'm valuable 5 years out, and then you hope that pans out for you on a 1-year deal. Yeah, it's hindsight though, right?
It is hindsight, but it is interesting to see the fact that the Blue Jays, under that second luxury tax by 1.5 million, signing Belt for 9 million, and then watching Joey Gallo for 11, and you're like, was this over $500,000 in the luxury tax? Don't know. Not that I think Joey Gallo would make this team any better, and I don't like Gallo, but for a team that lacks some power in the cleanup spot,
okay, you sure wouldn't be scared of putting him out in the field, though.
No, that's true.
Right? You're not afraid of putting him in left or right field in that situation. So yeah.
Can someone rectify this for me in my brain? Because we're complaining about the Blue Jays offense. We're 6th in the American League in runs scored. We're 4th in the American League in OPS. How is this the offense's fault?
We're 1st in the league in left on base.
And take out that 20 spot.
There's some weighted part to that.
Okay, but we could also take off the 15 to 20 spot on. Sorry, Greg, go ahead. I didn't hear you there. Go ahead.
Yeah, good. I think we're the team that also has the most players that we've had in that position to be left on base as well. I think we lead the majors, or we're damn near close to it, if I recall from what we were talking about previously. But
will the pendulum swing back the other way? Like, is some of this just baseball and shit luck?
I think that's Blue Jays level luck right there, right?
Well, I mean, because that's the thing is when you look at, it's not like we're not scoring runs. Do we have a high left on base percentage or frequency? Sure, but it's not like all we're doing is hitting solo shots. Like, we're 7th in home runs in the American League. So this isn't just coming off of the
middle of the pack.
We don't have 3 guys that are just mashing home runs and nobody else is doing anything. Like, it's just so I don't understand where this is. I know it's a problem, but I don't understand. I can't wrap my mind around how this is the offense's fault and we're top 5 in the American League.
Because I think the point of what is our identity really plays to that, right? Are we a speed team? If we're a speed team, then why do we have Kirk and Belt in a lineup? Are we a home run team? Because
we're a balanced team.
Yeah, but what is that? Did you make a balanced team because that was what is a balanced team, right? Like, to me, it feels like a balanced team is you more so don't know what you are, as opposed to you can step on one thing and push towards one end goal on having an identity. What do you push now? Like, do we need to run more? Do we need more home runs? Do we need? It feels like we need a little.
We need to be more aggressive on the base path. That's what I want to see.
Where do you say get this figured out and we're great? Because it just doesn't feel like any of those individual things.
None of the components are good enough. Like there isn't a single aspect of this team that is sort of elite, if that makes any sense, that could make up for other flaws in the team, right?
I think this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the team's identity. If you had to pick what we are, nobody really knows because we do a little of this, a little of that. And we're not the Rays. It's hard to do a little of this and a little of that.
And the left on base, like here's like a mindset of like the Japanese team is the most important bat on your team is your 4-hole hitter. And the Blue Jays, the 4-hole is a fluid concept of what is that, right? In Japan, it's the guy who knocks in runs. It's the guy that you trust to be up at the plate with 2 guys on who's going to deliver a hit and score runs. Here, we don't have a concept of what a 4-hole hitter is right now. Is it Belt? Is it Chapman after a good April?
Sounds like you're just grabbing Bichette. Sounds like you're making an argument for Bichette to be our 4-hole hitter.
No, I'm making an argument for Rowdy Tellez, Teoscar Hernandez, Lourdes Gurriel, Marcus.
They're not coming back though. Quit checking your ex-girlfriend's
Former Blue Jay
Facebook
here.
page. It's just leading to misery. Like,
I'm just saying, like
She does look so happy though, Adam.
she does look so happy in that new house that her sugar daddy just bought her. No shade at beautiful young girls with sugar daddies, by the way. I'd love to have one.
A beautiful young girl or a sugar daddy?
Either. Don't know. Actually, that came out wrong. I hope my wife isn't listening to this podcast at work. I have a beautiful young girl. Thank you, sweetie. Have a great night at work tonight. Okay, so Vladdy, it's a chicken or the egg question that I want to end on. Okay, Vladdy offensively currently having a down season. Pete Alonso leads MLB with 20 home runs. There's 5 players with at least 15 home runs. If Vladdy was hitting 15 home runs right now and hitting 300, like we know he could be, we've seen him on that pace before. How much of our problems are a trickle down of that? And again, to the chicken or the egg thing, is Vladdy struggling because of the team around him, or is the team around him struggling because he's not setting the tone? What do you guys think?
Yes.
What flavor do you want? Yes, please. Fair. Okay. I don't have a good answer either, so that's as good as anything I got. Joel?
I don't think his patience can last an entire season. He wants to hit and he wants to be a hitter. So that patience and reliance on the guy behind him only lasts so long if that guy behind him isn't producing. So I feel like his pressing is because of the team around him and the way that it's been built around him.
Okay. We're letting Vladdy off the hook today. I like it. I'm a Vladdy guy. I like it. Craig?
We continue letting him off the hook, to your point, because I think this is a team tone issue, not as much an individual person. Yes, this team would go off if Vlad got hot and started running. But to that point, I think there was just as much of to the point of they just had a locker room meeting with players only. There was just as much of that going on that's infecting everybody, and it's sucking the wind out. You don't see Matt Chapman get thrown at third base trying to stretch out, first to thirds in an infield situation like he did today. There's just everybody's trying to do too much, and they need to take that step back and try to figure this out. And I think then everybody starts getting the click. Right now, it's that tone right now. It's too urgent. Everybody's trying to press.
One thing I will say about this team that I really don't think is maybe being given enough attention is the fact that they do have so many new faces in this clubhouse. And the fact that, yes, it does feel like they don't have an identity right now. And I think it's because they don't have an identity. And that does not mean that they will not find one shortly. I mean, fingers crossed, obviously, because that's what this team needs to succeed, is they need to have a united front as to where they're moving this whole core forward with, right? But the fact that I don't want to say it's still early, because it's not. And I very much, like every other single Blue Jays fan out there, lived through 2021 and how important every single game was. And when you lose out by one game, I don't think you ever come back from that. You're just always aware of where you are in the season. But I think that there is still time for something to happen that brings this core together and they kind of forged in fire some sort of identity. They frickin' better. And I think that right now, Vladdy is floundering for a lot of the reasons that most of this team is, and that is that they're not a united front moving everything forward. They don't really know what this team is. They're a very talented group. I don't know. I have a really time answering that question, Adam, because I don't know. But I do think that Vladdy is at the point where he should be the leader of this group. He has been in the, like, we can't say he's young anymore. I know he's only 24 and he is young, but he's a major league player 5 years in. Like, it's time. Take that step, Vladdy. And maybe he's just putting too much pressure on himself, but it's definitely one of the big reasons why this team is struggling is Vladdy's gone ice cold.
Blue Jays dad or Jen, do you care to weigh in?
I wish I could remember being 24. um, yeah, I mean, I think Scott sort of summed it up right there, right? I think it's impossible to answer which comes first, because I think everybody is a little bit of a mess right now, with the exception of Bo, right? And so, you know, if Vlad gets going, that might get others going. If somebody else gets going, that might get Vlad going. I actually think that this could be reversed under a number of different scenarios. I really, to go back to what we said right off the top, I really do think trying to maybe switch up the lineup for, you know, and optimize it could be the answer to some of this. And they won't know until they try, right? But what they're doing now isn't working. So you might as well shake things up a little bit. Pretend you're the Rays. It's working for them. See if you can get a little bit of that, you know, mystery magic going.
It is interesting that Vladdy's numbers declining really coincide with Matt Chapman, who's in that cleanup spots, numbers also declining. Right?
Or is Matt Chapman's numbers declining coincide with? Okay,
we get
it. We get it. We get
it.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Blue Jays dad, you want the last word on this?
Yeah, I do think obviously Vladdy has the potential. He has within himself to carry this team if he gets hot. And I think that's what he's got to focus on, is getting himself right, taking his walks. You know, a lot of his outs he's been taking are pitches that are not his to hit. Here's my biggest concern, and it's not mental and it's not his talent level. I'm just wondering about the nagging injury. That is my biggest concern. And if there is a bit of a nagging injury, I'd like to see him take an IL stint and get it right, and then come back full force. But I think right now, when they do the whole urgency thing and like, oh, just play through it, like if that's what's going on, his swings. Here's what one of my kids said at the game today. You know what they said? People here don't cheer Vladdy anymore. It used to be when we would see them play in Kansas City, in Minnesota, in Milwaukee, he was getting applause everywhere. Anaheim, they loved Vladdy. He just did not impress this, even in the batting cage. It used to be, right? Like he'd put on a show. I'm just thinking there's something maybe physically wrong, and I would like the team to get that right, get him back. But I would just say, Vladdy, focus on his own at bats, and then let the rest of the chips fall where they may. And when he improves, everybody gets better.
All right.
Love it.
I like it.
What a great way to wrap this up.
Great way to wrap it up. Very insightful. Once again, on a long toss, I find myself the dumbest person in the room, and that is the best strategy for success. Surround yourself with people smarter than you, and I've done it today. So thanks everybody for joining me. Joel, let's start with you. Where can people find more of you? What are you up to? What's going on?
In the middle of the silly writer's strike. You can find me at Hey Kami. That's my TikTok page. You know it. Also Armchair Baseball on TikTok. But yeah, no, just waiting that out, and then hopefully good things to come when that's over. But just love that a union will stand in my way when they never really helped me to get to where I got in the first place. So go Union.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Jen, what about yourself?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at baseball_Jen. And as always, that's Jen with 2 N's.
Very good. Craig, got a lot of comments today that you and Scott look identical. So
We're doing
There's
it,
that.
buddy.
you're doing that.
I love
I
you
told
looking behind you like Scott.
I
That's why
told
you didn't
Scott,
wear
I said,
your
if we're
hat
having
today.
Craig on, make sure
Weird.
you don't wear a hat, Scott, so we can tell you apart. So I've been able to keep track of you this way. It's been very helpful.
Oh, I'll make sure I wear a name tag next time. But to that point, Blue Jays fans, I also host the Jay Bird Watching podcast. We're on every Wednesday evening at 7:00. Join the party. As always, we have always marketed our show as the barroom chat for Blue Jays fans. We do want to make sure we chit chat with everybody. That is the whole goal of the podcast. So join the conversation, and your voice will be heard on our show. Very similar to all the fun I have when I'm here with you guys, and it was a pleasure as always.
Awesome. Thanks again, Craig. All right, Blue Jays dad.
Yeah,
Lovely
just on the
hat.
Twitter. Yeah, just on the Twitter at Blue Jays Dad. And thanks a lot for having me. It's a lot of fun. And I feel the same way. I just feel, the more you hear from different people, you just feel like you get a better handle on things. So thanks everybody for inviting me, having me on, all the discussion, and everyone that's listening and watching.
Thanks a lot
So
for coming
we're
on.
so
man.
fortunate to have this community to talk through our crisis together during seasons like this. All right, Scott,
Ugh.
Calgary, buddy. Nice to see you again. I've
Yes,
been away. I
always.
feel like I haven't actually seen you in a week. So
I know you getting sick and being so busy with adult stuff in your life. It's
Yeah.
really slowing us down. But
man.
excited to be back at it tomorrow morning with MLB Mondays. And we are joined by Buffalo Bison analyst and head writer for the Herd Chronicle. Brian Frank is joining us. And then I actually just got a message from Davis Schneider. So he's going to be on Friday. And we are talking with Chris Black of Sportsnet on Wednesday. Big week for the Walkoff.
David
Coming
Schneider,
forward.
kind of like Beetlejuice. If you say his name enough, he'll show up, right?
He does show up eventually. Yes.
All right.
He very well might.
And a big shout out to everybody in the grounds crew for hanging out with the live chat today
Yes.
and
Thanks,
getting in the
everybody.
comment section, whether you watch it tomorrow on YouTube or listen on the auto stream. Okay, all the best to the Blue Jays in the following week, and hopefully next one we're laughing as we just went 7-0. So, okay, cheers everybody.